Hey, welcome to Craig Walker Coaching. This is your home for learning to live the life that you were born to love. And I do hope to become your trusted expert to help you win your battle over self-doubt. Well, today I'm sharing part 2 of the secret to build a great marriage. And I'm happy to tell you that, hey, you're happy ever after. It doesn't have to be a fairy tale. It can be your reality. At the heart of most ailing relationships, and I'm just going to change that. I think at the heart of all ailing relationships is an identity issue. The heart of your relational struggle, it's not those things that we typically have blamed, like personality or incompatibility, and then these traditional things that we always blame, in-laws, finances, sex, and children. It's none of those things. At the heart of your marital problems is an identity issue. The secret to building a great marriage is building a great identity. A great identity is at the heart of healing and happiness. And becoming a Christian, it doesn't mean that you automatically get Christ's identity. Yeah, you're in Christ, but it doesn't mean that you've identified with Him in everything. What you have to do, this is what will help you do, is to discover the disconnect and deal with it. Now, last week we contrasted the old life and this week with the new life. If you didn't see last week, make sure that you click pause, go watch last week's talk, and then come back into this week. And we think this one will make a lot more sense to you. You'll get a lot more bang for your buck, if you will, if you've seen both of them. Now then, assuming you've pushed pause, watched it already, and we're ready to go. Now then, let's get into the life in Christ. The scriptures teach us that we are God's masterpiece, that He created us anew in Christ, and He tells us why, so that we can do the good things that He planned for us long ago. In other words, to do the good things God had in mind when He made you, or to live the good life that Jesus came to give you, it all hinges on your experience of being made anew in Christ. The old life, that life apart from Christ, it was lived by fear and fueled by shame. Shame whispers into your ear, something's wrong with you and you're not enough. And when you feel that not enough sense rise up in your heart, it'll trigger one of two very unhealthy attitudes in your life, and it's that fight or flight syndrome. And you and I both know that they're both bad for relationships. Flight, we withdraw, we go silent, we default to people pleasing. We default to avoiding, you know what I mean? And then there's that flight, angry outburst. You know what that looks like. Or there's passive aggressive behaviors, like the couple on their honeymoon when the new husband says to his young bride, well, babe, now that we're married, I know you and I both want this to be the greatest marriage it can be. So let me just point out a few of the flaws that I've seen in you. And she said, well, certainly, darling. Because after all, it's those few flaws that caused me to settle for someone like you. Ooh. You will have, and this is what happens with that flight or fight syndrome at work that's fueled by shame. You'll have an attitude that says, I'll show you, or the attitude that says, I deserve it. Listen, both are bad. Both are destructive in a relationship. That's why we said shame is the birthplace of all that is bad. The new life, this new life in Christ, it's the birthplace of all that is good. It's the belief that says there's nothing wrong with me. I'm worthy of love and I'm worthy of respect. Listen, let me just give you, if you have this kind of identity, let me just give you a few hallmarks, 3 hallmarks of this identity. Number 1 is self-acceptance. You just know if God accepts you and if God thinks you're worthy, then you just have no problem accepting yourselves. People with a healthy self-worth, they're just not bothered by what other people think of them. Sure, none of us like it when we're not liked, not loved, and talked badly about, but it just doesn't bother them. I don't mean we don't care, we're cavalier regarding what others think. No, love cares. It just isn't controlled by what others think. And so we're free to be ourselves. You've met people like this. Seemingly, you just can't push their buttons. My old boss at General Motors, when I worked for him, I just admired this guy because it was like he didn't have any buttons. There was nothing to push. You just couldn't make him go into fight or flight. Then there's people like me. My buttons were all over me, and they were obvious. They were marked anger, pout, sadness, and people knew how to push my buttons. But people with this Christ-centered identity, they just accept themselves. They don't respond or react when they're attacked. They respond. They don't let people treat them like a doormat. They build healthy boundaries in their lives. Here's something else. They don't rehearse hurts. They address hurts. And they address people respectfully that hurt them. Self-acceptance, it's just a hallmark of this strong sense of self-worth, this great identity. Here's a second hallmark. It's this I can attitude. I can attitude. They just believe that through Christ I can do all things, and they don't feel stuck. Jesus gave his highest praise for people who just had this I can through Christ attitude. But he gave his harshest rebukes, his harshest criticism to those who doubted. You remember this story? Jesus had told the disciples, get in the boat and let's go across the other side. He had been preaching. He was tired. He goes to sleep in the boat. A fierce storm rises, the wind and the waves, and they're about to drown. And they finally yell out, Jesus, don't you care? They wake him up. Say, Jesus, don't you care that we're about to drown? Wake up and bail the water. Get a bucket. And isn't that how we tend to respond? Jesus, don't you care? With this attitude when we don't have a strong sense of identity in Christ. We get mad, or we just withdraw. We go to silence or people-pleasing, avoidance. Somehow or another, we've got to hear Christ, and we've got to understand that in him, that none of that's necessary. We can look to him and say, there are answers, and we can find answers. We're going to get through this, and we'll get through this together because we're in Christ. If you're grounded in Christ, your identity, it doesn't mean that you automatically have the answers. It just means that you believe that because you're in Christ, you can get answers. That's a I can attitude. It's a healthy second hallmark. Here's a third hallmark. It's authenticity. If God made you and this is your reasoning, then I have no reason to want to be anyone else. I don't. I'm just free to be the person God made me to be. I'm free to lean into him. You can even be your imperfect self. Yes, I said imperfect self because you just don't feel the need to cover up your flaws. You can own your flaws and trust that living authentically is how you're going to glorify God, and you're going to find his help to change. So you just know you can always get better. It's that I can attitude. Well, Debbie and I, we don't have it all worked out, but we have learned a lot about living this life. And it all came when we had our breakthrough about our identity. I want you to listen as she shares her side of the story when she embraced her new identity in Christ.
I finally came to the place where I realized and believed what God thought of me. It was a real struggle to believe, but I get it now. I am his masterpiece. I am created anew in Christ, and I'm worthy of his love, and I am loved unconditionally. I can share my feelings and opinions with Craig now without feeling beat down for it, even when he doesn't agree with me. And our marriage, and especially our love life, has just grown tremendously. I can talk to him about anything I'm feeling, and I still mess up and he still messes up. But when I do or when he does, I don't feel like I'm a failure, and I don't withdraw or react in anger or passively aggressively. I'm able to give myself to him intimately too because I want to and not because I'm supposed to. This is kind of saying a lot, but I think we've developed a Song of Solomon kind of love life. I am just still amazed at where we are today because we each know and believe who we are to God.
Well, Debbie said it well. We still are flawed. I think that's huge to understand because I used to think that if my identity was in Christ, then I always had the right answer and said the right thing. And it just isn't true. I'm still flawed, and that's just part of being in Christ, to be okay with that. Since discovering my true identity in Christ, I've just lost the need to do everything perfectly, and I don't feel the pressure to pretend. I just now feel the freedom to be myself and knowing that I can do better. I can change. I used to believe, well, that's just the way I am and you'll just have to take me the way I am and I can't change. Now I know better. I know with my identity in Christ, I can change anything that needs change. And Debbie will tell you that I am changing. Gosh, I think we're both changing every day. We just keep getting better because of Christ in us. This is huge. I no longer look to her to prove that I'm awesome. I just trust that since I'm in Christ and in God, God thinks I'm awesome, and where I'm not, He'll help me get better. The weight has been taken off of her that I used to put on her. And I think I'm most grateful for that. I no longer look to her to prove that I'm enough. And taking that weight off of her, it's just freed Debbie up to be the person, that I knew she was when I married her. We shared this talk with you today because, we want you to know what's possible. I think a lot of times we don't embrace our identity in Christ because we don't think it's possible to embrace it at this level. It is. And we want you to know that. It makes such a difference, though, that we'd tell you this, that when you're working towards this healthy identity together, please hear this. It's possible to fully embrace your identity together, and it's possible to build the marriage that you had in mind when you said, I do. It is. But here's something we think you need to know. Debbie and I didn't come to embrace this true identity the first years of our Christian life. No, it took many years. But this is what I want you to hear. Don't miss this. It didn't have to take many years. We could have had this breakthrough a long time ago had we known what we know today. One, that it's possible. Two, that there's a process. Had we known what we know today, we could have experienced the breakthrough and the marriage that we imagined many, many years ago. That's why we created Truly a Masterpiece. We want you to experience the secret to building a great marriage, to having your happily ever after. Truly a Masterpiece is a training that helps people embrace their true identity in Christ. Truly a Masterpiece, or TAM as we call it. It's a unique program that follows a process that's proven to help you become all that you want to be in Christ, and to know that you can. If you struggle with shame, sometimes behave out of fear, then this program is for you. You say, my spouse isn't ready for that. Often that's the case. What we would tell you is don't wait for them. We wish you could come through it together. We think that's far better. But if you come through it and experience the change, we believe that the change you experience will be the change God uses to bring them along with you. Please click the link, join the training, click the link that's in the notes below. And we just want to say, if this has been helpful to you, please click the like button, share it, leave a comment, and click the bell so that you'll make sure that you'll be reminded of anytime we post a video, so you won't miss a single one of them. Well, that's all we've got for you today. I hope this has been helpful. May He help you to live the marriage that you imagined when you said, I do.